appreciate Representative Scott Cepicky being with us to talk about some of the wins in the 114th General Assembly. Hello, Scott Cepicky.
How's everybody doing today?
How are you?
Fantastic.
You look great.
Thank you.
You look refreshed. Look like you got a great weekend of sleep.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about the legislative session this week.
Back to work already.
I mean, you probably got hay to bale.
Yes.
I don't know if you're doing that yet.
A lot of it, yes. If the weather will break.
How's how would you rate the session?
Outstanding. I've been up there 7 years, Matt. This is the best year we've had as a General Assembly.
Tell me why.
Well, I'll run through some things here, and you stop me anytime you want to, right? Because I want everybody to hear what we've done, some of the accomplishments. First of all, in health, we've added $1.5 billion in new dollars for health and social services, nursing home providers, behavioral health, and dental care for those on TennCare. We've removed barriers for cancer patients to access recommended medications, so you don't have to go through a procedure anymore. The doctor can prescribe the cancer medication that will solve their problem immediately. We've expanded prenatal screenings to protect mothers and babies. We've protected religious freedom for healthcare workers. Remember, during COVID, they were trying to force healthcare workers to take a shot or a vaccine. Now we give them the ability to say no. That's in healthcare.
Well, I would note that in terms of barriers for terminally ill patients or for cancer patients, there's still no medical marijuana available for those patients in the state of Tennessee. That's sad, but true.
That'll be something we'll have to take up and consider. I don't think anybody has a problem with medical marijuana for certain cases. I think it's how do you keep the genie in a bottle. That's why.
That's fair.
That's what I think.
No, that's fair.
And I think if we can come up with a way for the prescriptions to be made for those on terminal cancer or terminal pain, that they are allowed to access that, I don't think anybody's going to be against that.
Well, I do think that, to make the case as I have made for medical marijuana in a structured format, California was the worst thing to happen in order to try to make that case because it was an absolute joke.
Yeah, it's a train wreck
out there. I mean, it was a free for all, and it was essentially recreational that they called medical, and it was just it was an absolute joke.
That's the thing. I mean, we know terminal care, things like that, yes, but a headache, no.
Right.
And so you got to figure out how to craft that legislation, and to date they haven't figured out how to do it.
In which the whole headache argument. That's what I'll probably be on that side of the argument, but come at that honestly and just admit to Scott Cepicky that you want to have an argument about recreational use of marijuana, and Cepicky's probably going to disagree with you on that. But don't be dishonest with it.
That's correct. Law and order. We had a big year. Savannah's law to establish a new domestic violence registry that's been passed. The Peace Act to combat hate crimes and improve public safety. Tougher penalties for THC distribution to minors. We created the Human Smuggling Offense Network. We also expanded penalties for sex offenders and criminalized generative artificial intelligence involving minors. That is those Photoshop things you see where they put a minor's kid's face on a body, and then they're publishing them out there, and it's causing a lot of problems. So we escalated the penalty.
We didn't talk a lot about that when that was moving through, but this is it's one of those things. I laugh because it's an issue that I never thought we would have to deal with, but AI has become so real
and pervasive
that you're now seeing real faces, and I mean, and you think these are the real people, and when it happens to innocent children, I mean that. Maybe there's a free speech argument on one side, but when some of the sexual predators are doing it for children, I mean, it's a no-brainer for you guys.
And there was testimony in committee that I watched that was gut-wrenching to listen to a young lady that this happened to and basically just ruined her life. And so we stepped up to the plate and strengthened those. Children and families, we increased access to child care, ensured children use bathroom facilities that correspond to their biological sex, established pro-life protections for pregnant mothers, and then banned the red 40 in schools, which is one of those dyes that causes ADD, ADHD, things like that.
And y'all were on the front end. I think Robert F. Kennedy Jr., that was one of his banned dyes that it's going to be banned nationwide by next year. And y'all were in front of that.
That's right. And there's about 3 or 4 other dyes that we're going to go after next year. Representative Elaine Davis carried that. And she just didn't want to upset the apple cart too much, but she wanted to get this one across the finish line, which is very big for us.
The biological sex piece, were you surprised that many Democrats fought that?
Yes.
I mean,
I don't understand it. I mean, it's common sense. I mean, and if you want to allow boys to use girls' bathrooms and have those family bathrooms, it's one stall, you can lock it and it's fine. But don't allow access for males to go into female bathrooms that are multiple or girls or females to go into male bathrooms that are multiple. Just stay away from that whole thing.
And I've argued, all I watch are conservatives and libertarians moving on the issue and trying to be as graceful and as forgiving and understanding as possible. In other words, you're like, okay, if we find these unique one-off circumstances, we can make specific accommodations for these one-off. And that's not enough for these people anymore. They're like, no, you can't do it that way. You have to abuse the rights of our little girls.
That's correct.
And that's just a line in the sand that most common sense Tennesseans aren't going to cross.
That's correct. And that's why we're Tennessee.
Sure.
We're Tennessee.
Sure.
Education had a really big year. We started off with the Education Freedom Scholarship. We banned wireless communications, so cell phones during instructional time. We did protect free speech for our students. You know, there was a problem we had with anti-Semitism, and then other college students wanting to make sure that they had their ability to defend their speech. We increased more recess for children. That's a bill that's very near and dear to my heart. I got to carry that one. We created the Federal Education Deregulation Task Force to deal with no more Federal Department of Education. We required parental notice for school threats. And then lastly, the success sequence in family life curriculum of if you go through life in this way, your chances of success increase exponentially.
We had a good friend of the show, Jason Whitlock, on, host of Fearless Podcast. He's bringing in Tucker this weekend, and I'm going to be a part of that. But I was talking to him about this, that I am fascinated at some of the hills Democrats want to die on when it comes to just common sense. Success sequence, nobody's telling you what you have to do. We're just giving you some information. Hey, you know what? If your parents aren't teaching you this, and frankly, the parents should be.
Correct.
But this is a good opportunity for us to let you know that this is what statistics show. Do you know how much better prepared you're going to be for life if you graduate from high school?
That's correct.
Or you get a secondary education, or if you go to a trade school, or if you wait to have a child until after you're married. It's just, for most of us, it's common sense. And nobody's telling you have to. Just, hey, you're going to be better set up for life. That was another issue that I'm like, who are the Democrats that are screaming and yelling about this?
Well, if you want to do successful things in life financially, you do what successful people financially do, right? If you want to lead a successful life and have the most opportunities for you, then lead this life curriculum, right? Graduate high school, go to college, go to community college, go to a TCAT center, join the military, and then get married. And then after you get married, have children, and you lead a successful life because you don't upset that apple cart. And then lastly, we went after the last final, in my opinion, we put the dagger into DEI in the state of Tennessee. We prohibited local governments and public universities from making hiring decisions based on race, religion, sex, national origin, age, or disability. We prohibited race-based discrimination in higher ed admission, scholarship, and financial aid decisions. We ended race-based selection for membership of state boards, and we prohibited state and local governments and public universities from having DEI departments.
How is it, and I get it, I'm almost asking a rhetorical question. Local governments and public universities for making hiring decisions based on race, religion, sex, national origin, prohibited race-based discrimination in higher ed. How is that not covered by the Civil Rights Act?
That is the question that's the $1 million question that we asked in committee and asked, and nobody could really give us a definite answer. And so we said, okay, we're going to openly define it to say you shall not do this. So there's no vague ambiguity. This is what the law says. You cannot do this, period.
Well, because it's open racism.
Yes. If you're looking to hire somebody or promote somebody, and you're not looking at what their character or what they bring to the table, the first thing out of your mouth is what color they are, how old they are. You know, we fought this battle in the 60s.
If that's a defining yeah, well, I agree with you. And if that's a defining criteria for whether or not you get a job, it is inherently sexist or racist or, whatever. Yeah, discriminatory in some way or fashion. 21 after the hour, we'll continue with Scott Cepicky. Several of you are asking questions of Representative Cepicky. I'll give him a heads up on one of them. Ask Mr. Cepicky how the House Speaker snuck in $8 million for local primary elections into the budget in the 11th hour after the Republican establishment machine argued that the primary bill didn't need a fiscal note and skipped the fiscal study. I'll ask the question
We
next.
have an answer.
I bet you do. Weaver's going to don a medium.
He's never told you about us.
No.
How we know each other?
No.
He was the bat boy when I played for the Nashville Sounds.
What do you think about that?
Now he had his facial hair back then, and he hadn't shaved since I saw him last time in '92.
Most people don't know this. If you're watching on Talk TV right now and you can see Ken Weaver, and then you see Scott Cepicky. Most people don't realize Scott Cepicky is 78 years old. Most people don't know that. He looks great. Played back for the Sounds back in the 70s, right?
I didn't play with Shoeless Joe.
When did you play with when
Frank,
were you with the Sounds?
Frank Thomas, 92. I'll tell you what, if you're listening to this radio station and you saw Michael Jordan play baseball in Nashville, you watch me play first base for the Nashville Express.
Well, not really. You were there playing for them. They were all watching Jordan.
They were until I hit one over his head, and I got to jog around the bases.
Oh, look at you. Were you a bomber?
Yeah. I could hit it a long way today.
Did you make it? You made it AA?
AAA.
Were there thoughts of the show?
All
the times I've talked to you, we've never talked about it.
Until the White Sox said no. And then I went down to Venezuela and played in Venezuela for 2 years.
How was that?
You know that?
I can't believe I've never had this conversation.
Yeah, I played baseball in Venezuela. That's a whole other show.
Right now, people are like, why aren't you talking to Scott about this? This is much more fun than education.
Well, no, that's not true.
I don't believe it's true either, but some do. We'll talk about that one of these days. Before we have to say goodbye, there were 3 constitutional amendments.
There are.
You and I just talked about it off air. They all 3 seem to me to be no-brainers.
They all should be yeses. I'll go through them very quickly. Constitutional amendment to keep violent offenders in custody, basically denying those who commit the most heinous crimes in Tennessee, gives the judge the ability to deny bail. 23 other states already have something like this. We're late to the game, but that's all it does. Second one is the constitutional amendment prohibiting a state property tax. Now, not county property taxes or municipality property taxes, but putting it in the Constitution like we do for state income tax, no state property tax. And the third one is a constitutional amendment to expand victims' rights, such as the right to request to be heard in any proceeding or involving release, plea, sentencing, disposition, giving those who are the victims of crime more of a voice in the adjudication of those criminals, of those crimes.
Yeah, all 3 of those are no-brain yeses.
Now, the question that was asked over the radio.
Yeah, I was about to recall it. So
very simple is when we fought against taking away that right or privilege, which is a right or privilege to the local counties. It was I asked a question on the House floor. Well, in the presidential election years, that's paid for by the state because we have to provide the presidential preference primary. But in the off-election year, like we have for governor coming up, those would have to be paid by the local counties. And so basically by passing that law, it became an unfunded mandate, and so they had to address that. And so mysteriously the next day, poof, $8 million showed up as a budget amendment.
Sexton maintained when he was on with us last week that these 2 things were not connected.
They weren't connected. They're not connected in reality, but because one was passed, it created a legislative conundrum.
So another way of saying that, and I don't want to put words in Sexton's mouth, but he felt like the one issue kind of brought the other issue to the surface.
That's correct, because I asked a question on the House floor, who pays for it in the off-election year now that you don't have an option?
Right.
And the answer was, well, the locals. Well, you heard the rumblings in the General Assembly. Like,
it's just moving the expense from the local community to the state.
To the state. Now, it's a one-time. We just did it for one time in 26, so which means in 30, we're going to have to address this issue again.
Personal opinion, besides the scholarship fund, what 1 or 2 things in the 30 seconds we have left, the best things personally?
Well, you know that I believe that if we solve education, we solve a lot of our back-end problems, right? I believe the cell phone bill during instruction time is huge, and the recess for elementary is huge. It'll pay huge dividends for us.
Everybody I talk to loves the recess bill. And the cell phone bill, too. The cell phone bill might be, I don't know, some parents might get a little itchy about it, but the recess bill, everybody loves it. Well, yeah, and I think it's a simple thing that I think is going to do a world of good for our elementary schools.
I appreciate that. We will see. And then TCAP's going on right now. We're hearing very good things. I hope to come back here and give you some real good numbers on TCAP.
Well, you can check in with us during the summer. Just because we're not in session,
I got to clear.
We're here,
but
don't wear suits though.
Well, you
wear your farmer gear.
You wear those.
This is a casual kid. Yeah, those. What do you mean those?
It's something.
That's a good look for me.
Well, it's a look.
Yeah, cowboys and
it's a good look for somebody.
That's a nice tie, by the way.
Thank you very much.
See, you take the criticism and you turn it into kindness. That's what I do every day, 3 to 7.
I don't know. Heidi Campbell may disagree with you.